Good morning. Welcome to all our guests. It's good that you're with us, and thank you for spending this hour with us this morning. So Thanksgiving is over. Let's go back just a second here before we go forward. Thanksgiving, how many people completely overate on Thanksgiving? How many people don't want to put their hands up for fear of... All right? So now that Thanksgiving is over, I have the great news to tell you. You have 24 and a half shopping days until Christmas. How many people did I just raise your stress level? Right? So I've done this at Saxony. So if you've heard me do this, don't let on in here. See how high we can get in here. How many of you will have at least 2 family Christmas dinners? At least 2. Raise your hands. How many of you are going to have at least 3 family Christmas dinners? Okay. How many of you are going to have at least 4 family Christmas dinners? No 4s? 4s. Petzel family. I'll try this. 5? Not 5, right? My record, by the way, is 6. Is doing this. It was at Saxony last year, right? One of the students at Saxony was going to have 6 family Christmas dinners in here. All right? You got your shopping done, right? How many? Yeah. Who doesn't have their shopping done? Oh, there's a few ladies this time. First service there was no ladies; it was all guys. All right. How many of you will have children or grandchildren's program between now and Christmas to go to? How many are going to have that? I had one person this week tell me when we were talking about that question, one person looked at me and said, Pastor Mark, it doesn't even count till you hit double digits on that one. All right? How many of you are going to be stressed at Christmas? As simply talking about it, I've raised your stress level a little bit. All right? Because the reality, I think, is we have this, we say Christmas time is here. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it great? We go, but Christmas time is here. Isn't it wonderful? Christmas time brings stress. And I think that stress falls in 3 areas. It falls in the area of family, of gifts, and grief. I think they all 3 fall in that area. And that's what we're going to talk about in these Sunday morning sermons and our Wednesday evening sermons through this Advent season in the month of December. We're going to talk about these things going in here. All right? So that's part 1 in here to set that up. Now what I need you to do is Mr. Jim announced this earlier, I need you to get your cell phones out if you've got your cell phones with you. All right? If you didn't bring your cell phones, that's okay. Bring them next week. All right? Get your cell phones out. Get your cell phones on in here. And if you're on Facebook or Twitter, it does not matter in here. Go ahead and load Facebook and Twitter up. All right? So you can respond. Because what we're going to have you do in this morning is as I'm going through this, if you have thoughts, if you have a comment, if you have a question, if you have something that strikes you, don't wait. Go ahead and post it right then with the hashtag #StressedChristmas. And we'll find it. All right? Now what we're going to do, I missed this first service. So first service people, tell them. What we're going to do is your thoughts and your comments are going to form the basis for Wednesday night's message. So the questions you have, the stuff you're going to talk about, bring up, that's what we're going to talk about Wednesday night. So basically, you guys get to set the agenda on Wednesday night. I'm going down through here. With me? Right? Now, one last note. If you're looking at that red line up in there and you're sitting there wondering, why does it have a pound sign in it? Use an attendance card. All right? Just use an attendance card and give it to one of us as we walk out. All right? We'll get it. All right. Story for you. It was approximately 1977. I was 20 years old, and I was working, part of the thing I did in college, I worked with the Texas Tech football team. The Texas Tech football team that year played a bowl game on the evening of December 23rd in Orlando, Florida. Now, if you've ever thought about timing and stuff, a bowl game in the East Coast at night starts late and ends even later. We didn't get back to our hotel room that night probably till about 1:30 in the morning. So I wake up about 9 o'clock the morning of December 24th in Orlando, Florida, and I get to drive home. I get to drive home. So there's another guy with me that I worked with in here by the name of Don Edwards. And Don Edwards and I climbed in this van packed full of football equipment, and we started home. Okay, now this is December 24th. This is Florida, okay? If you've ever driven Christmas time in Florida, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. The roads were a little on the insane side, even then. And we fight traffic, and we go up, and we're driving, and we get to Pensacola, Florida. And we're pulling into Pensacola, Florida in there, and it's getting dark, and things are starting to close, and we have to stop. And my Christmas dinner that year was a greasy burger from a Choke and Puke. And after that, we went over to our hotel, which was some flea bag hotel, because it was cheap and right on the highway in here. And we walked in and we camped out in our hotel room, and that loneliness descended like rain. It just all of a sudden coming in, the reality of the situation. I was alone on Christmas Eve for the first time in my life. It's that loneliness, right? Because we all think, and being honest here, there are some families that are like this. I know that. Let's throw this for our first picture up, Pam. This is at Norman Rockwell, right? We all think, so for some people, their Christmas is exactly like this. This is what their Christmas looks like, and great for you. And for some people, this is what they hope this is their dream. All right? This is something in their heads that they're thinking and what they're hoping their Christmas looks like in here. But the reality for a lot of people, Christmas looks like this. Show my next one. Christmas looks like this. And this reality of being alone. No matter how hard we try, no matter what we do, this is what the reality turns into. It's that feeling of that we're alone. We're out there by ourselves in here. My grandkids were in over Thanksgiving, and we started our Christmas movie watching over Thanksgiving. And one night we were down there, what do you want to watch? And they popped up together, and together they said, Home Alone! And I said, somebody's got a sense of humor around here, right? So we sat down and we watched Home Alone in here, and and it's a funny movie going in here, but you're with it, right? It was even sad as you're going down through there watching it when that realization occurs, when Kevin McAllister, our hero in the movie, realizes he's going to spend Christmas Eve by himself. There's that point in that movie that just sits there and goes, that rain descends again. Reach in and grab your Bibles, if you would. We're going to go to 1 John chapter 1. either grab a Bible, or if you've got your cell phone on, jump over to YouVersion in your cell phone, all right? 1 John chapter 1. If you're not real familiar with your Bibles in here, the easiest way to do is start at the back and go forwards. It's almost in the back, all right? 1 John chapter 1 is what we're going to talk about. Because John addresses this very issue. John, in this reading that we had, we just read it, but we're going to go back on it here, addresses this very thing as it's happening going in. And he sits there and he says, follow with me from verse 1. That which was from the beginning, which we have heard, which we have seen with our eyes, which we looked upon and have touched with our hands, concerning the word of life. I think what happens in our American Christianity is we think if we're growing in faith, if we're growing in our relationship with God, if we're growing in here, it gets more spiritual, it gets more mystical, it gets more ethereal in here. And the more you grow, the more mystical and magical it is. And what John's doing here is John's blowing that out of the water. Because he's saying here is what's happening here, this is real, it's tangible. Listen to the verbs that he uses again. Which we have heard, which we've seen with our eyes, which we looked upon and have touched with our hands. It's real, it's tangible, it's physical. And this life of faith is real, it's tangible, it's physical. You can grab it, you can touch it, you can hang on to it, you see it, you hear it, all those verbs in here. And then he marries this, he takes that tangible stuff going in here, and we'll follow with me on verse 3. That which we have seen and heard, this is common John, he's backtracking on himself again, repeating himself. That which we have seen and heard we proclaim also to you, so that you may have fellowship with us, and indeed our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. That word fellowship is one of those great big words in the Bible. Other thing I think we do sometimes is we simplify fellowship down to coffee and donuts, and that's coffee and donuts are down there, great. You get one on the way out, all right? But that's not what John's talking about here. He's not talking about that fellowship down there. He's talking about this bond. This bond, this connection that we have with God. Remember it says in here, that you may have fellowship with us. Indeed, our fellowship is with the Father and his Son, Jesus Christ. This bond that we have with Jesus is real and physical and tangible. It was real blood that he shed for you. Real blood that make you a part of this bond. It was real water that was poured over your heads to make you a part of his family, make you sons and daughters of the King. Real water in here. It was his real body and blood you stood around here just a minute ago and he placed in your hands, so you know that bond you have with God is real, intangible, and physical. That connection, that bond we have with God is real and tangible and physical in Jesus Christ. It's important we know that. Important we grasp that. Because he goes on and he sits there and he says, go back to verse 3 again with me. That which we have seen and heard we proclaim also to you, so that you may have fellowship with us. Fellowship with us, he says. So there's a bond going on, right? There's a bond, we just talked about it. There's a bond going on between you and God. It's called fellowship. And there's a bond going on between each other in here. I love it when we're sitting up here where we're doing communion in here. It drives the ushers mad, batty sometimes in here. But sometimes you get around the communion table here as you're going around and you start filling in, and all of a sudden there's more people than space. right? That happens occasionally, right? There's more people than space. And all of a sudden, everybody's kind of got to squish in like this. And all of a sudden, your personal little space becomes like this. And you're kind of squished in and waiting for people to come around. When I'm sitting up here doing this, I love that. Because it forces you to realize we're connected to each other. We're connected to each other. This bond that exists not only is you and God and vertical, this bond that exists is horizontal as well. We're connected to each other. We're part of His family, and being part of His family, we're part of each other and belonging to each other. And so that's why at the end of the service, and I'm going to do it here in a minute, I'm going to warn you again, is right, when we have you stand for the benediction, I want you to hold hands. It's not simply to make you feel uncomfortable in here. It's to make you realize we're connected to people. And it's real, it's tangible, it's physical. If you can't hold a friend's hand, hold your wife or your girlfriend or your kid's hands. Hold somebody's hand so you know you're connected. Because this thing, fellowship, is knowing that we're connected. And connected to other people. So the question I have, remember I sit there and I asked the question at the beginning of the sermon, I sat here and I said, how many of you are going to have at least, what I say, right? At least 2 Christmas dinners? I started at 2, right? Family Christmas dinners? What about the person you know that would say none? What about the person you know that's like the guy in the bleacher up there? What about them? Are we including them? Do you know them? You know who they are, to include them in this bond as well? But maybe that guy in the bleacher's you. Maybe the guy on the bleacher's you. Because you can sit here, and even at times, right, in a crowded room, you can feel so alone and so disconnected from people. If that guy in the bleacher's you need to cry for help. Cry to somebody. There's a room full of people right here you can cry for help to. Cry for help. Reach out to somebody and keep reaching out. So till you know that you're connected. That you're connected to people here. So Pensacola, Florida. It's Christmas Eve on Pensacola, Florida, and Dud Edwards and I are sitting in a hotel room. And we start channel surfing, all 2.5 channels in there. If you caught that joke, you just dated yourself, all right? 2.5 channels in there, right? And one of the channels we landed on, I'm sure had It's a Wonderful Life on, because it's always on Christmas Eve, right? And that was over. We saw part of that, and we watched the end of that, and we started flipping the channels, and it landed upon, of all things, Midnight Mass from the Vatican. And here's Don Edwards, the good Baptist kid from Corsicana, Texas. And me sitting in there, the good Lutheran guy from Plano. And suddenly we felt connected. We suddenly felt connected to each other, to our families back home, and we felt connected to God. We were part of a bigger family. It's this bond that John talks about. It's fellowship with one another. And our fellowship is with Jesus Christ. So, now it's your turn, all right? Don't forget to hashtag that stuff in. Make your posts and your comments and stuff. That's the basis for what we're talking about Wednesday, all right? You guys get to respond to what we just talked about.